Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome back to Super Kaiju Binge. Reading from the description, I made a big oops back in, I think I was reviewing Gamera movies, where I totally fucked up the numbers of my episodes. This is the proper episode 35. I think it was my Virus and Guiron video. I had just come from getting 3 hours of sleep because my son is a little...
I'm a night owl, so.
Well, I am too, but I also like to sleep for more than 3 hours.
Yeah, so when you're a night owl, people say like, who's at the door? Who?
Man, you're just gonna be a big hoot this
Oh,
episode,
God damn it!
Alrighty, so today, me and Jackie Boy, as he's introduced himself, we'll be talking about the 1950s classic giant bug movie that's not them, The Black Scorpion from 1957. Normally, I would have done this by myself, but I figured because of who did the effects for this movie, it'd be nice to probably get the biggest fanboy that I know of as a guest reviewer for this film. So, yeah, Jackie Boy is here, whose remake of King Kong has just reached 1 million views. Go watch it, even though it's a fucking piece of shit. No, not really. But seriously, go give it a watch.
I will make you watch Godzilla's Revenge 100 times in one day.
I already have done that. That's not punishment for me. That's more like a reward.
That movie's a piece of shit.
But it's only 1 hour and 9 minutes long.
But
so
it's a long shit. Like a long hunk of shit.
Nah. Revenge is not the worst Godzilla movie. Moving on. So, Jackie Boy, I know that you love to suck Kong's giant hairy dong.
You mean his giant wet banana?
Or that too. So he can put his banana in your split.
No.
Okay, so you've surely seen some 50s monster or atomic monster movies, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the basics. Your Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Godzilla, The Deadly Mantis, The Land Unknown. I've seen my fair share, mostly in the Universal library. Are some of the ones I go to the most. The Black Scorpion is one of those movies that I watched only really after the advent of the internet and when I was studying Kong and knowing what all the movies Willis O'Brien did. And it kind of was, I always forget about this one. Out of all of O'Brien's films, I think next to The Giant Behemoth, it's the one I'm least knowledgeable about. And the only thing I know about it is the fact that a lot of the puppets that O'Brien was going to use in the spider pit scene, the lost spider pit scene in Kong, actually ended up being used in this film.
Allegedly. Apparently there's a little bit of like haziness surrounding those facts, but we'll get to those a little later.
Mm-hmm.
As viewers of Super Kaiju Binge know, of course, I am a fan of 50s monster movies. Reviewed them with Trev. I reviewed the original Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, also with Trev. I've seen a fair amount of 50s monster movies. And this one...
You seen Tarantula?
I have seen Tarantula. That actually will not be added, nor Deadly Mantis will be added to Super Kaiju Binge, because I watched both, and they gave me absolutely nothing. So I was like, oh, that's a shame. I couldn't even do this as a double feature because these movies left absolutely no impression. Well, Deadly Mantis.
You call it a bug's life.
I just have to bug out. Sorry. My ambitions to review these giant bug movies just got squished.
You've been prepping this all day on your shift, haven't you?
No, it's just now that I'm a dad.
You've been writing these puns down in your head because you know it's going to annoy me. I hate puns!
Well, yeah, just like when we were doing the Son of Kong commentary, all the you couldn't bear all the giant bear puns, could you?
Bug off.
Oh, I'm just trying to bug him. Anyway.
Don't make me pull out the Randy Newman song. Once a bug, little bug. I like bugs. I love A Bug's Life. I love that shit. That's what that is the most underrated Pixar movie. Anyway.
Your jokes and your threats, they don't stink, they sting. Anyway. Anyway, the Black Scorpion, back to topic. The Black Scorpion is a giant 50s monster movie that I never thought that I would really ever get around to seeing. My first exposure to this film was actually Daniel Wickwire from Kaiju Movie Review, now Dan and Angela Gaming, back in the early days of his channel when he would actually do legit movie reviews using footage and writing scripts for the reviews. He did a review on the Black Scorpion, and for some reason, it was always one of my favorites of his reviews, probably because he made the movie sound really, really good. And also, the film would always stick out in my mind as something that might be interesting when it was stated that Willis O'Brien worked on the effects for this film. But for some reason, I just never really got around to seeing this movie until I just saw on Amazon that this DVD was $14 yet again, like Son of Kong. So I said, you know what? This will make a nice Christmas movie. Plus, I want to add a little bit more to Super Kaiju Binge. So, and I also watched Brendan Tenold's review of this on his show. And after that, I was like, I'm sold. Gimme.
It's funny because ever since I did the nerd review, people want me to do a review with Brendan, and I'm like, he is so hard to reach.
He's worse than James. And he's like maybe 1/10 as famous. But anyway, so yeah, I got this movie through Amazon and I sat down and watched it in one sitting and I dug it.
It's cute. It's a small little movie. It's a nice little fun little movie.
I thought it was a pretty entertaining monster movie. We'll probably never ever get a giant centipede movie, at least done in like the style of a kaiju film.
No, we were good. We got the human centipede.
Oh.
Feed her.
But anyway, if there's any bug, at least them made ants scarier. But if there's any bug that's scarier than spiders, it's scorpions, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, scorpions are cute. They're like poison crabs.
Exactly. That's why that makes it spooky.
They're poison black Mr. Krabs. They go around like money, money, money.
You're gonna make me crabby.
Mr. Krabs!
Anyway. Yeah, there's not much to say about the Black Scorpion in terms of personal history, and nor is there anything really much to say about the plot. So let's get into it, shall we? This movie was released October 11th, 1957. It was directed by Edward Ludwig, who is a pretty notable film director. He directed nearly 100 movies between the years of 1921 and 1963. Although, ironically, this movie was actually his second to last film that he directed. This came out in 1957. His final film, which was The Gun Hawk, was released in 1963. And I think that's because he died.
Yeah. He directed a half-finished movie. He's kind of dead.
Oh, no. That was 20 years before he died.
Probably just retired. He kind of went off like John Gulliman, because after he did King Kong Lives, he said, I'm done. Bye. I'm retiring for like 30 years.
The only other movie that he's done that I know is pretty famous is the 1940 version of Swiss Family Robinson, also released by RKO. Huh.
And that was Walt Disney, because at the time, Disney didn't have his own studio yet. He was selling it off mostly to RKO.
So the plot to this film, it stars Richard Denning, Carlos Rivas, Mario Navarro, and 50s sex symbol, no way of getting around this, Mara Corday. More on these guys later. This movie actually has a pretty decent cast. So the plot goes, an earthquake strikes Mexico, resulting in the overnight birth of a new volcano. Geologist Dr. Hank Scott and Dr. Arturo Ramos are
Olé.
dispatched to study the crisis at the village of San Lorenzo. The two men finding a destroyed house and a totaled police car en route. They find a dead policeman nearby who's still breathing when he hits the ground, and an abandoned and seemingly orphaned infant. They take the infant to San Lorenzo and give it to friends of the child's missing parents, while also being welcomed by the village's priest, Father Delgado. Delgado reveals the property damage is caused by something that is slaughtering the livestock, the villagers believing the culprit to be a demon bull and have been pestering Delgado for divine assistance.
I wonder if Delgado was named after Marcel Delgado, who did a lot of sculptures for Willis O'Brien.
Something to ponder. But finding this to be bullshit, Hank and Arturo begin their geological survey, see what I did there, as members of the Mexican army under Major
That's bullshit.
Major Cosillo arrive in San Lorenzo and begin disaster relief efforts. Hank meets and falls in love with a married local rancher, Teresa Alvarez,
of course,
and makes friends with a young boy named Juanito. When the volcano erupts again, the culprits behind the disappearances and deaths are revealed to be giant prehistoric scorpions. After killing a crew of telephone repairmen, the scorpions attack San Lorenzo with the Mexican military unable to harm them, which really stings. The next morning, the scorpions have returned to their underground lair, which is also home to giant worms and spiders.
And the home of the Scorpion King.
I want the Binge. Leaving the authorities to seek the help of renowned entomologist Dr. Velasco. Maybe little Binge. Velasco enlists Hank and Arturo to figure out means of destroying the scorpions or seal off the entrance to the cavern. Despite collapsing the cave entrance, the giant scorpions took refuge in the caves before resurfacing days later to attack a train. Man, this movie's just really going off the rails at this point. Some of the passengers are killed as infighting among the scorpions resolves in the largest of them killing the others before heading for Mexico City. He smells tacos. Hank and Arturo come up with a plan to
shells because they got shells.
Oh, you fucker.
Ha ha! I can do it too. Take a look. Pinches, doesn't it?
You're just going to leave me shell-shocked.
Kind of stings.
I already did that one.
Too bad.
Hank and Arturo come up with a plan to lure it to a stadium with a truckload of meat, with the military distracting it long enough for Hank to kill it by shooting an electric cable attached to a spear to its throat, which is its only vulnerable spot. After destroying several tanks and helicopters, their surviving fighters detonate the electric charge, finally slaying the last scorpion, and leaving to meet its maker.
So it's a bug zapper.
Yeah.
They bug zapped it.
Quite the shocking experience. It was shocked when it was stung. Bark is worse than its bite. Oh man. He's so mad. He's about to pinch my head off. Oh, and with that, all the puns are bookended. Dad jokes. Don't you love them? And with that being said, a word from our sponsor.
You done?
For now.
You done bugging me?
Oh, my mission was already accomplished. I just wanted to bug you. I can do this all day. Peach cream, by the way. So what do you think of this plot, Jackie boy?
Outside of if this was remade today, it'd be pun to shit. It's not bad. It's surprisingly short and surprisingly just small. It's not like, it doesn't feel too big. It doesn't feel like a Godzilla or a Kong where, it's just, this is sort of like, if you did like all these giant monster movies and they're all connected from the 50s, this is like the Ant-Man. Not them. I don't count them. This is like the Ant-Man of all these old 50s monster movies. It's just there, basically.
That's Tarantula, dude.
That too. Well, no, that's just the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies outside of the cool ones.
Well, my thoughts on this movie's story. It is a fairly typical. Well, no, actually, I wouldn't really say it's typical because atomic bombs aren't really mentioned in this movie at all, really.
It's a stinging tail.
Nah, that's forced.
Oh, fuck.
No, I would say it's both typical but also atypical. This isn't really an atomic monster movie because atomic bombs aren't really mentioned, but it does retain the formula of a 50s giant monster movie. It feels like a 50s giant monster movie. But what I think sets it apart is A, of course, the monsters themselves. B, the effects that are used on them. And C, the fact that I think this movie is actually a bit grittier than most 50s monster movies coming out at the time. I actually think, from what I've seen anyway, probably the most gruesome 50s monster movie is The Giant Behemoth, actually. And since Willis O'Brien also worked on this film, it feels similarly gritty. On how this takes place in the middle of buttfuck nowhere in Mexico. How you actually do see some people being killed and you see some creature violence on screen. This movie feels a bit more risque and a bit more gritty and grungy compared to your normal giant monster movie. Like watching Tarantula, that film is very tame and no pun intended, it's very dry because it takes place in the desert.
No.
But this movie feels like it's trying to push the envelope a lot more. Like
this feels less like an 8-legged freaks and more like, let's have a monster movie directed by the cheapest director who makes the cheapest movies we can get. Who do we got? This feels like something Robert Rodriguez would have directed in the 90s.
But that's not really a bad thing because I do like this movie's tone. It does feel a bit darker. It feels a bit more grungy and a bit more violent. But we'll talk about that more when we get to our pros and cons. But overall, I like this movie. It's not one of my favorite 50s monster movies. Actually, no, I think in pure American 50s monster movies, I actually would list this as a favorite. But there are others that I like a lot more. But I think for what this movie is and for what they accomplished with the tiny ass budget that they kind of clearly had for this.
A tiny bug-sized budget? A bug-jit?
No. For what this movie is, it's pretty decent. Before we get to our pros and cons, just some production trivia. This is just what I'm reading off of Wikipedia. Willis O'Brien, of course, creator of the stop-motion animation effects for the original King Kong, was the special effects supervisor for this film. Pete Peterson, who worked with O'Brien on Mighty Joe Young and would also again for The Giant Behemoth. I think, though, O'Brien was a bit more involved with the effects for the giant behemoth, at least from what I've seen. Pete Peterson himself did most of the actual hands-on animation. And watching this movie, it's very obvious O'Brien borrowed heavily from his previous films for the stop-motion effects. In the what I call the bug pit scene, the miniatures used for the trapdoor spider and the giant tentacled worm have been reported to be the same ones that were supposed to be used in the lost spider pit sequence from the original King Kong.
And it's funny, you could take that scene and cut it into the 33 film and it would work, actually. I personally think it would work.
Almost, yeah.
We'll fan edit.
It's a real shame that scene was cut from Kong, but King Kong 05 wonderfully delivers on that scene.
Yeah, the one where Andy Serkis gets hentied to shit. Those slug... it's funny. This is a funny little side story.
Oh, I got you.
But
no, he just got head.
Like those slugs, the carnictuses, which look very similar to a phallic shape. I'm friends with the guy who sculpted that at Weta, and I asked him, was that deliberate? And he said it was deliberate, and he was shocked that Peter went for that because they all said, there goes the fucking rating. Now we're going to have to be looking at all these like muddy Dr. Manhattan dicks all day. Can you imagine that movie in 3D?
Yeah, we'd have to watch Andy Serkis get head.
Yeah, and then just put at the corner Brazzers.com. Guy gets shoved, gets 2 to 5 dicks shoved in him.
Okay, enough dicking around. What are your pros and cons? No, start with your pros for the Black
really only have one pro and one con. So it's pretty simplified. The only pro I have really is the effects, because I think this was at a time that O'Brien, his career after Mighty, like, he did really well. He got back on his feet after Mighty Joe, because in between the original Kong and Mighty Joe, he was really struggling with work. And then Cooper and Schotzak picked him up and got him to do Mighty Joe. And then after that, I think he was just mostly, because Mighty Joe, I think, was his peak in terms of just effects work. And after that, he was kind of settling down. I think he was just very, like, I'm kind of done. I don't want to do this anymore. And he mostly took the pay gigs. Like, anything that was just like, fuck it, I'll do it, right? He wasn't picky as he used to be. So with that said, it's like the effects I feel like some of the puppets were mostly taken from his archives that were probably going to be used on Kong or other projects, but he just never used them. Like, I mean, even like some of the puppets from like War Eagles, that was a big project he was trying to get off the ground. Those ended up still around and being used and shit. So
it's a shame that movie never got made. I know.
It's like, talk about a movie that would be like original and awesome. Like, this is like, get Joe Johnston on this, who did like The Rocketeer. Like, this would be amazing. But the whole thing with again, I think some of the puppets were most likely used in the spider pet scene, and there were sort of nods to that because Willis O'Brien thought, well, I haven't done that. I haven't shown that sequence on film. So there's also at the time, I think he was recycling a lot of concepts. But what's really interesting about the effects here is that I noticed this because they not only do stop motion effects, they do the full they do some animatronic stuff, right?
Puppets.
Yeah, puppets. Now, the same technique was being used by, I believe, both O'Brien and Harryhausen for Walt Disney on a documentary called The Animal World. And in that documentary, it was Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen did the effects. They were paid by Walt to do this segment about dinosaurs. Now, this was way after Fantasia and Walt did his piece, but he was doing these little nature documentaries for like, I think NBC or something at the time. And he had pretty much hired O'Brien and Harryhausen to do these dinosaur effects. So they're still stop motion dinosaurs and they're great effects, but they still use the animatronic pieces, that the same technique they use in Black Scorpion. So I noticed there was kind of a parallel between the two projects because they are very similar. But really, that's really about it. It's a movie for me, it was a movie to watch just for the special effects. That is the real only pro I have with the film.
All right. Well, I have a lot more to say about this than Jackie Boy does. Okay, here we go. So I have 8 pros and I have 5 cons for the Black Scorpion. Pro
5
number
stingers.
1, huh?
5 stingers.
No, just stop, because that just makes it sound like I have 5 joints to smoke, which I don't. Pro number 1 is the scorpions themselves. I think they are pretty well executed as looking like giant scorpions. They look intimidating. They look threatening. They're well animated. Not talk about the effects, but they're well animated for what they had. They certainly are mean and nasty and imposing monsters. Their designs are really good. They're pretty much like I'll just say they're kind of like giant emperor scorpions, which those are really cool looking scorpions. Not much to say about the scorpions themselves, but yeah, I like their design. They're certainly threatening monsters, and when they're on screen, the movie is a lot of fun to watch.
I will say this too, is that I do like the fact that they did go with stop motion, because this was at the time Tarantula came out. They could have easily gotten real scorpions and just filmed them on blue screen or something.
Which they did do that, but we'll talk about that later.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Oh, dude, watch the damn movie.
I did.
You didn't watch it all the way.
Pieces of it.
Pro number 2. Okay, we may as well get to this. Or actually, no, I want to pace myself. So, pro number 2 is I actually like the Mexico setting. You don't really see that many monster movies taking place in Mexico, and you'd think that the only other movie I can think of off the top of my head is Tremors 2. Hi, Trev. But yeah, the Mexican setting, I don't know if this movie actually was shot in Mexico, but if so, the landscape is nice. The scenery looks great. It has kind of its own, ironically, because we mentioned Tremors, it kind of does feel isolated from the rest of the world, but for this kind of small area of Mexico that the characters are staying, this feels like the movie makes it feel big in this small environment. And it's a bit creepy. It's a bit haunting. And the scenery and the even though there's a lot of stock footage, but that was the 50s. That was a big thing then. Overall, I like the Mexican setting. It's a refreshing change of pace.
I mean, here's the thing. I get the feeling they probably shot it in California, like in the deserts of California, because it was more affordable.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Because like there is sort of this thing of, oh, Mexico and California look the same. They kind of do. It depends on where you go. Having visited Mexico personally, like I've been to Mexico, I've been to Cancun. It's like a tropical jungle environment. It's gorgeous. The Mayan pyramids are phenomenal. Yes, I have visited the Mayan pyramids. They're really something else. Mexico's gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to go, fucking go. It's beautiful. But
nah, I don't trust any of the cartels.
Yeah, I mean, I went to what was it? I was staying in the Grand Esmeralda resort. Beautiful resort. Oh my god, they have a pool. All you can eat ice cream. All you can eat food, and pools everywhere. Oh, paradise, paradise. Just oh.
Pro number 3 is the musical score for this film. It is pretty generic, but still, I mean, admittedly, I kind of don't remember a specific piece of music, but I remember a fair bit of the music that plays during the action scenes, especially the ending. And I thought it was pretty well done. It fit what was going on screen. It accentuated the action, and it kind of it was effective for all the more suspenseful scenes too. The music was done by Paul Sawtell. I believe this was the only monster movie he ever did.
What other film scores did he do?
Oh, no, he did a lot of science fiction films. He did Kronos, It, The Terror from Beyond Space, Return of the Fly, The Lost World, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
That was more in like the 60s, so he had more of a better time in the 60s doing a lot of scores. Like, I think after that, then Bernard Herrmann took over and said, yeah, I'm doing everything now.
Ooh. Still, The guy had some talent, so more power to him. So yeah, I like the music. Pro number 4 is I want to talk a bit more about the tone. I do like this film's tone. It feels a bit, like we said, it's a bit darker. It's a bit more gritty. It's a bit more grungy. And also with the, Cinematic Trash is here.
Hi, Cinematic Trash. I haven't seen you in forever.
Are you going to bestow us with your snobbiness?
Yes, because on the BigJackFilms website, he's our version of the cinema snob. I'm here to talk about the Black Scorpion porno.
Well, you know, there's that the Black Scorpion superhero movie from Roger Corman. There's a topless fuck scene in that, so you may not have to go far.
She's gonna take that scorpion tail and shove it up her ass. I love the cinema.
No, but when she nuts, it stings. Moving on. Anyway, so yeah, I like this movie's tone. You also do see, like, you see a lot of dead animals, like remains of dead animals that imply that the scorpions came through and ate the livestock, and you see one dude get grabbed in pincers and he's like spitting out blood out of his mouth. And there's a few scenes where the stop motion scorpions are picking people up with their pincers and ripping them apart. So you didn't really.
That's common in those kind of creature kills. Like what I did, like, I mean, it's kind of like what I did on Kong was I tried to be a bit more out of the box. What I did do sort of that, grab thing. But I've always wanted to see a scorpion pierce a guy, like through the chest. So I did that in Kong where a guy got pierced through the chest by a scorpion.
Well, we don't see that, unfortunately.
That would be like a Mortal Kombat move.
But still, I do like this movie's tone. It feels like it's a bit more violent and gritty for a 50s monster movie. So for me, that was a refreshing change of pace. Pro number 4, I think. Okay, 5, excuse me. Is also the atmosphere. Because of the foreign setting and because of the unfamiliar location and because this movie is a bit more gritty, I do like the atmosphere. And you actually do see like the after effects of when the scorpions kill people and when they destroy property. I at least do feel a decent sense of suspense and doom from these monsters because they actually showcase them fucking shit up left and right. So at least for me, you feel a little bit on the edge of your seat waiting for when these monsters are going to show up and start fucking shit up again. I think it's pretty well executed. Pro number 6 is the bug pit scene. I really, really dig the bug pit scene. I think it's actually the best part of the movie. And yeah, Jackie Boy's kind of right. Is the
it is pretty much the spider pit scene from the original Kong.
Almost could be cut into the original Kong. Yeah, the monsters look very similar. It's a pit, or yeah, it is a pit. It looks a bit differently. It looks like more like a big giant series of caves rather than just a valley between two pieces of land. But if you stretch your imagination, and also in general, if you stretch your imagination, you could kind of say that this movie could still take place in the King Kong universe.
I guess you could. Like, unless some of the scorpions maybe went underground and like maybe escaped the island or something. Bugs can travel through ocean. They have been known to do that. They can fly, or they can be on a little piece of debris in the ocean, just live on that until they find land.
Sure, why not? But the bug pit scene, there's lots of good monster action down there. There's some decent suspenseful moments. There's some good moments of tension, and overall, when the scorpions are running around tearing shit up, like there's one scene when a scorpion takes on a giant 30-foot long worm. There's a little fight that ensues, and one of the scorpions kills it by taking its pincers and literally cutting it to pieces. And you see bug blood bleed out all over the place.
That's a little overkill on the circumcision there, buddy.
You just had to worm your way into that, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's also refreshing, actually, seeing giant monsters being shot by people with guns, and the guns actually kill something. Mostly with talk about the trapdoor spider scene. I thought that was cool, despite the fact that Juanito is an annoying little shit.
Oh, can we get to the cons now?
No, not yet. I have pro number. Was that 6 or 7?
6. You're on number 7.
7 is the special effects. I like the effects. A lot of people, from what I've seen that talk about this movie, don't really care for the puppet scorpion head.
I mean, if you look at it on the cover, it looks goofy as shit. It's googly eyes.
It doesn't look like this. It does not look like this in the movie. Well, it has the big eyes, which are very anatomically incorrect to giant scorpions. But whatever. I still think it does look fairly imposing. It's always drooling out of its mouth. It always looks wet and slimy and gloopy.
That's what she said.
Shut up. I think it looks intimidating.
You wormed right into that one.
But the real highlight of the effects, of course, are the scorpions themselves being animated with stop-motion animation. It's not the best. It's not Willis O'Brien's best work. You can tell that this movie has a lower budget. We'll get to that later. But for what they were doing, I think the stop-motion animation is pretty decent. The scorpions are well animated. They move and walk very well. Their tails move very well. Their pincers are a little stiff. Like, you don't really see them close. You just see them kind of wave their pincers around. But still, that looks good. And when there's multiple scorpions on screen, it's a lot of fun. Like when watching the scorpions fight amongst each other, that's really good stuff.
I mean, I'll say this. I feel like Harryhausen later perfected those kind of pincher creatures for Mysterious Island when he built a
giant crab.
When he built a puppet on a real crab, actually. Like, that was real crab shells he used.
Yep, I know.
So...
nothing uber special about the special effects, but they're fun to watch. And for this movie's smaller budget, I think they were pulled off pretty well.
I was going to say, this movie is making me hungry for crab now. I might go get some tomorrow.
Tacos.
My name is George W. Bush, and I approve this message. Tacos rule.
Anyway, yeah, I like the special effects. I think it's pretty good, especially the big scorpion, the big scorpion.
That's the big one.
That's the big one. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to be watching that movie tonight with Meadow.
What? Uh
huh.
Nice.
Sorry, Ryan. She still gives 2014 a 5 out of 10.
It's not held up at all.
No, I think it has. It's just got a couple major problems.
The problem is just how much that advertisement just fucking lied.
Moving on. The final pro is overall the action scenes in this film are fairly entertaining. Whenever the scorpions go on a rampage, it's a lot of fun, like the train scene, the bug pit scene, the initial fight with the scorpions, and then, of course, the final 15 minutes of the movie is just one big long scorpion rampage. And especially when the scorpions fucking up trains and planes in the baseball stadium is a lot of fun to watch. The scorpion actually really puts up a good fight against the trains and planes. And
I'll say this, to be fair, is that I will take these type of effects over anything from the asylum any day. These are just because at least it's in front of the camera. Shut your whore mouth. At least it's in front of the camera, and at least it's practical. It's actually there, and it's not just a quick little shot, like that's like a fraction of a second of like 2 scorpions going by.
Hold on.
You got King of the Lost World, didn't you?
Hold on.
You got that piece of shit movie, didn't you?
Hold on.
Oh no. If there's a scorpion NATO, no.
No, that'd be cool though.
And then
it would be moving so fast that the wind is stinging.
Scorpion earthquakes versus Sharknado.
Well, there's already Arachnoquake.
Scorpquake versus Sharknado. There you go. And you froze. Oh, there you are. Oh, God damn it!
I couldn't resist. This is ripping off Freddy versus Jason, right?
Most about that is that it actually doesn't look that bad. Like, at least the effects look a little better than the last time I watched an Asylum movie. My biggest problem, Eric Roberts. What the fuck were you thinking?
That might be something to add to a future Super Kaiju Binge episode. But that means I'd have to buy the rest of the Asylum's monster movies. And
there's too many of them.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I feel like the pilot in Return of the Jedi. There's too many of them.
Okay, how do you get this to stay? Come on, you bastard. Alrighty. So, yeah, that's all I had to say about the pros. Not, admittedly, a whole lot to say, but, yeah, I dig this movie. But, with that being said, unfortunately, this movie has quite a few problems. I have 5 cons. But, Jackie boy, you can go first.
I just have one. And the fact is, outside of the effects and some tones and some action scenes, it's such a generic story, generic, boring-ass characters. Imagine they took Ben Johnson's character from Mighty Joe Young and made it every motherfucking character in this movie.
No, it ain't that bad.
Oh, it's like, I did not remember a single character, single human character. I didn't give a fuck. Anybody who complains about those Godzilla movies where the human characters are just boring and pointless, I'm sorry. I remember those motherfuckers more than I do these characters. I remember more the little kid in Godzilla's Revenge who stands on a car and fucking twerks. I remember that kid more than any fucking character in this goddamn movie.
I mean, yes, but also no. Con number 1 for me is, yes, I say the cast is very standard. This is a very basic, very standard, very by-the-numbers giant monster movie cast for the 50s. But it doesn't bug me nearly as much because we have a fairly decent cast. The lead being Richard Denning, he was a pretty popular actor in the 1950s for science fiction films. He was in Unknown Island, Target Earth, Day the World Ended, Creature with the Atom Brain, and I know him best, and I instantly recognized him. He played the character of Mark in the original Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I instantly recognized his face as, oh, that's the dickhead from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Unknown Island is one of those movies that I do have to cover at some point because there is a giant ape-like creature with dinosaurs and shit. Have you heard the horror stories behind that? They had like guys in really shitty dinosaur suits, and apparently they was so hot when they were filming that stuff that one of the actors fell on the ground and passed out in the suit, and they just kept that in the shot like one of the dinosaurs got shot.
Well, I'm kind of used to that because Haruo Nakajima passed out multiple times playing Godzilla, so
but
that's
did
nothing
they
new.
ever take out those footage and put it in the movie?
Not really, but when he was playing Varan, he had an explosive go off underneath his balls, and he tumbled over with a burnt stomach, and they kept that shot in the movie.
There's a joke regarding giant kaiju balls, but I have nothing at the moment.
You're blocked up, ain't you? You got blue balls?
No, they just haven't.
Not a thing, by the way.
Hasn't dropped yet.
These just.
Well, hey, I guess that moment blew his balls off.
Just blew up in his face too. I'm having a great time busting your balls. All right, so yeah, the cast. Oh, and of course, Mira Corday, again, massive 50 sex symbol. That's not even me talking shit. She actually was a Playboy playmate and an American showgirl and a model. So yeah, she was a big sex symbol in the 1950s. She herself, though, does have a lot of monster movies under her name. She was also in Tarantula 2 years prior.
Clint Eastwood in Tarantula?
Clint Eastwood was in Tarantula for literally 15 seconds. He was the fighter pilot that launched the napalm bombs that set the tarantula on fire.
And he was also in Revenge of the Creature.
Yep.
Love Clint. Clint's a legend.
This same year, Mira Corday was also the main female lead in The Giant Claw.
Oh my, okay. I kind of love that one because that is just so bad it's good.
No, Pierce, I will never watch The Giant Claw. You cannot pay me.
It looks like a vulture that was made by the fucking McDonald Land.
Possibly.
It looks like a McDonald Land vulture.
Possibly. But anyway, yeah, the cast, they have good actors, but still, they're just very basic and boring. None of the acting really is bad, per se. It's just the characters, really, there's not much to say about them.
It's just by the book script dialogue. Like, I figured everybody on there is like, yeah, just stick to the script, guys.
Con number 2, the scorpion sound effects are very overused, in my opinion. Their sound, it's so overused. It almost overpowers the rest of the soundtrack. And also, they use the same chittering sound effect from the giant ants for the scorpions. They reuse that sound effect.
The giant ants.
That's already been done before.
Yeah, I know.
You really, really need to stop trying to come up with puns. You're going to be hooting and hollering around just like you got ants in your pants eventually. Anyway, that's more like a nitpick, how these sound effects are very overused. And by the way, I will also say that this movie does at times feel pretty similar to them. Just kind of feels like Edward Ludwig was trying to pay homage to them.
Capitalize a ripoff.
I wouldn't really say it's a ripoff, but you can just kind of feel like they're doing something similar with this film. But that's not entirely a bad thing because I like this movie and I also like them. And, giant scorpions replace giant ants. It's still an entertaining enough film. But anyway, yeah, the scorpion sound effects get just a bit too overused throughout the movie. It just gets kind of old.
How about a Destroy All Monsters style film, but with all the giant kaiju bugs? So like the black scorpions versus the giants versus the deadly mantis versus tarantula.
I think the scorpions would win.
I know, but it's like this huge monster brawl. Like I'd watch that.
I'd watch that too.
It would be fun.
The last 3 cons that I have with this movie kind of all have to do with the same thing. Con number 3, the movie is clearly made on a lower budget. Con number 4, there's lots of reusing shots with the scorpions throughout the film. And there's lots of the bad composite scorpion effects are so terrible, and they use them quite a bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the movie just overall looks a lot cheaper. Mostly it's with the effects. Like the stop motion is not entirely up to the biggest standard because you can tell it's kind of jittery. It's kind of not really rushed, but it's not as smooth. Like this ain't got shit on Mighty Joe Young, as far as I'm concerned. You can just tell that the stop motion is made with lower quality. Not necessarily a bad thing because you can tell that the effects guys were trying, but we've seen Willis O'Brien do better, and this isn't one of his best works, in my opinion. The second thing is toward the end of the movie when they don't want to use the stop motion scorpions to rampage throughout a town with people running away from the monster. They do what they did for the tarantula in Tarantula, where they actually compose a tarantula on screen to make it look big. Now in Tarantula, it looked pretty good, in my opinion. But here, it's terrible. It almost looks like it was copied and pasted on screen. And the actual tarantula is very see-through. You can clearly tell that the tarantula is very transparent, and it ruins the effect of that being an actual giant scorpion walking around destroying a city. And also, the scorpion, when it's composited, doesn't do anything except walk from point A to point B. It doesn't reach out for anything. It doesn't act aggressively towards anything. It doesn't raise its tail. It just walks.
That's it.
It's not very threatening.
Not at all.
And the final con, which is the reusing of shots, they do this a lot. They reuse shots of the stop motion scorpions all the time.
Oh, so it suffers from Superman 4 syndrome.
Kind of, yeah. Where in the bug pit scene, the big scorpion comes out and kills one scorpion by stabbing it in the throat with its stinger. There's then another scene where the big one kills the rest of the scorpions. And instead of showing different ways that the scorpion could kill it, they just reuse the same shot from the bug pit scene to showcase the big scorpion killing the rest of its brood.
Oh no, we ran out of money.
Reuse a shot. And also, during the final baseball stadium fight, they reuse the same shots of the scorpion reaching for planes and reaching for tanks 3 or 4 times to pad out the runtime. It's very distracting, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. The killing of the scorpions shots is even worse because you can clearly tell it's just the same shot. Because when the scorpion kills the others later in the movie, it's out in the open. But the scene in the bug pit, you can clearly tell it's in like a pit. And they reuse that shot when the scene is supposed to be out in the open. It's lame.
No,
huh?
Which makes no sense. Sorry, I'm tired. See, this movie's kind of, I'll admit, this movie is kind of boring, and I did kind of fall asleep to it a little bit.
Anyway, so yeah, that's really all I have to say about this movie. Final thoughts, Jackie boy?
It is just for the effects. The visuals and the effects are what make it fun. But other than that, you can pretty much watch a compilation of these creatures on YouTube and get your money's worth there. Is it worth the glowing review? No. I would give it probably in all about a 4.5 out of 10. I know that's pretty low, but at least the effects give it some extra points for me, because if they were not there, this would have been like a 3 or a 2.
Well, this is probably now my second favorite giant bug movie of the 1950s. And to quote Cecil from Good Bad Flicks, you can never have enough giant bug movies. I dug this movie. I thought it was pretty entertaining for what it was. It's not them, but honestly, if you were to find a pretty close companion piece to them, I think the Black Scorpion is a good one to go with. So I will be giving this a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I got something out of it at least. It also did show me more of Willis O'Brien's effects work outside of Kong. And hopefully sometime soon I can get my hands on the giant behemoth and complete like the little Willis O'Brien legacy.
You also have to try to find, at least find the segments of it is the animal world. The animal world actually has some decent effects. And in fact, one other thing, Willis O'Brien's last credited film outside of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World was actually the 1960s remake of The Lost World. He didn't, because apparently they wanted to do stop motion, but O'Brien was just too expensive, so they went with the whole put frills on lizards and glue them on and make them fight each other. But O'Brien was just like, go ahead. But he is credited in the film. For some dumb reason. Also,
What?
the Invisible Man is Professor Challenger. Claude Rains is Challenger in that. He's actually pretty good. Oh, you also got to get The Lost World, man. You got to watch that. The original Lost World.
The 20s one?
Yeah.
Hell no.
Oh, it's classic.
I don't like silent movies. That's where I draw my line with old
What
movies.
if somebody did an audio version of the movie?
Then I might check it out.
Yeah, like add sound
That'd be
effects
cool.
and shit. Okay, that's a cool idea.
But anyway, yeah, 7.5 out of 10. It's a decent 50s giant bug movie. There's far worse, like Tarantula, but there's a whole lot better. So I think
I'd watch this rather than like Eight-Legged Freaks.
Eight-Legged Freaks is a fun movie. What the hell are you talking about?
It's meh.
I like. Oh, I mean, I could do without the spiders killing off pets, but other than that,
it's okay.
yeah. Well, hey, you might get more of a kick out of it because it has a young Scarlett Johansson in it.
I liked her more in the first Avengers.
Of course,
how did Nostalgia Critic put it? I look forward to seeing your ass in Lost in Translation. It's gonna look great.
You're just like my dad. Anyway, so that'll about do it for this episode of Super Kaiju Binge. Sorry, we guess we didn't really have a whole lot to say about this. I was hoping for a bit more, but whatever.
It's as dry as a desert.
Nah, that's Tarantula. Look forward to the next episode of Super Kaiju Binge, where I will actually be closing off what I call the entire Showa era of monster movies. We'll be leaving behind the 50s, we'll be leaving behind the 60s, and we'll be ending with the final movie of Kaiju movie, at least, of the 1970s, and at the end of an era with the 1976 remake of King Kong. Join me for that, and then after that, we'll be entering our first Kaiju drought of the decades, because for 8 years, there was nothing. Not counting Gamera Super Monster.
What about King Kong Lives?
That was 86.
Oh.
The drought ended with the return of Godzilla.
Aha! Okay.
So look forward to that. And as always, go out and don't get lost in the middle of the desert, man. That stings. And I will see you guys in the next video. Yeah, it just you just get bugged a lot.